Okay guys, the next thing we're going to look at is graphing. And I know that this is something that a few of you are nervous about or that you don't really like doing because you haven't done a lot of graphing online. Okay, so or on your computer, what I'm going to show you here is how to make the simple graph using this formatted sheet that we've already created. You had the weeks and the goals next to each other. I told you to leave them together for a reason. I'm going to show you now how to do that. What you're going to do first is highlight starting at the top so that you get the headings in the names. You're going to highlight all of your data that you want to graph. Okay, and so you can see now that whole area is selected. What you're going to do, you go back to your toolbars at the top, and we're going to click on Insert. Okay, there. Once you get used to this, you can actually pick what kind of graph you want straight from the little options here. But for now, we're going to click on Recommended Charts, and we can see some different recommendations it's given us. The top, it wants us to do a combined graph, which has a line and a bar graph together, just to show some different data. For what we're doing, that's not the best option for us. What I usually use, and what you'll probably like also, is the third one down here, and sometimes it might be the second. But it's just a basic line graph. So you can see this is a scatter, a plot, or a scatter graph. You can go down here and use your regular line graph. So just click on Line, click OK. All right, there you go. It's graphed it for you. All of our data is in there. Okay, so let's go down, and what I've done, I'm just left-clicking on this graph, and I'm dragging it down, and I'm going to put it on page 2. I know it's page 2 because you see we talked before in the video series about this gray dashed line that shows us where the pages change. Okay, so as I go on down, this is page 2, and actually went to the right there. You can see the gray line there. You need to be to the left of that, and again, look at the cells or the columns at the top. All right, I need to get that over to where we're starting at, and we started right at the edge of B. So I'm just going to pull this down somewhere, and I'm going to see, if I look right here, I can see the bottom of that analysis box, and just have these all kind of format so that they are similar in appearance. I'm going to move this all the way so that it lines up to the left of the analysis box, which is also where my goals are. And then I'm going to grab right here one of these little dots. I'm going to grab the one on the right, and I'm just going to spread this graph out to the right. Now, I went a little farther, you'll see. But so that it lines up. Now, that's going to be on page 2 if we print that out. Okay, so let's take a look at how this line chart showed up. First thing right off the top I see is I've got more data than I want. Remember, we're only going to graph the goals, not the benchmarks. Now, the benchmarks are important because they make the goal. Okay, but I don't want to show these to the parents, and we've got too many lines on this graph. Right now, it makes it hard visually to see what's going on. So what we're going to do, I'm going to click on Chart, and you're going to see some options come up to the left. I'm going to click on that graph again. You see how it's highlighted now. And we've got some options over here. We can look at some different elements of the chart. I don't really want to change. That's where you would change your chart titles or different things like that. I don't want to worry about that too much. We've also got chart styles. I don't want to change that chart right now. And then when we go down, what I do want to look at are these chart filters. So let's click that. You're going to see right away that we've got values and names of different things, okay? I can change the names if I want to. For what we're doing, I'm not that worried about it. It's already pulled up the names of like goal 1, goal 2. What I want to look at are these check boxes, okay? Right now it's under Select All, and it's selected all the data that we have. I don't want to use these benchmarks, so I'm going to unclick those, okay? And I'm going to go down and I click Apply, okay? All right, and let's see. I've just realized that maybe that box wasn't showing up on the screen capture software that I'm using. So let me show you that all over again one more time. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm clicking on the chart title, or the chart, the line graph here, and we've got the 3 options here, and all I've done is shrinking the whole Excel document a little smaller so you can see it. But we've got chart elements. We don't want to change that right now. We've got chart styles. We don't really want to change the colors and things. Like I said, this is printed in black and white, so there's no point in really messing with that much. What we do want to look at are these chart filters, okay? And when you first made this graph, this whole thing was lit up, and we were seeing all these different lines of data. I'm not interested in the benchmarks being graphed for presentation, so what I'm going to do is uncheck those, just like so, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to hit Apply, okay? And the first thing you're going to see is now those extra lines are gone. Okay. Now we're only graphing goal 1 and goal 2 as the guidance document says that's what we have to do. So here's our goals. We're not worried about benchmarks as far as presenting that data to parents or at ARCs and things of that nature. All right. Second problem we've got if you go back up and look at our data, you can see that we stopped graphing on, or we stopped taking data on week 9. Okay, and if you go down and look at week 9, we can see where goal 1 stopped. Okay, because we didn't put nothing in. But where we had this copied and pasted, if you chose to do that, it's going to show the data basically as dropping to 0 at that point. Okay, so there's 2 options. Like I said, I don't do mine, so you could just go back through and erase this data. Okay, and that should take care of the issue. Actually, I think we would have to go and hit clear contents where that data was at. Okay, see, that solved our issue. But if you're not wanting to do that, if you're somebody who wants to have those already copied and pasted in place so that all you do is pump in your benchmarks and have your averages, you can go down, and what you can do, if you're not going to present this data till week 15, it's not going to matter, because as you enter data, let's enter some more data so you can see what's going to happen here. As you enter in these benchmarks, 12% might be kind of low. Let's fix that. As you enter these in, what you'll see is it's correcting the graph for us as you go. Just like I said, it's auto graphing, okay? So, but what we can do, let's get rid of that data that I put in real quick so I can show you. Okay. Oh, actually I went back one too far. I'm going to redo. Okay. So, what we're looking at here is how to get rid of this 0 line if we don't want that. If we're meeting at week 9 at ARC, we don't want that on there, you can just get rid of these cells. That'll take care of the problem. If you don't want to do that, you can also go back to your chart filter again, and just like we deselected that we didn't want the benchmarks being graphed, we can go down, and this is our x-axis across the bottom. We can go down and we can say we don't want weeks 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, what have you. And what that will do, that'll make our graph a little bit smaller also, or not necessarily smaller, but it's going to make our scale smaller so that we can see more movement amongst these lines, see what's going on. So there's 2 ways to fix that. A, get rid of that pasted formula, okay, and that's probably what I would do. The other way is to go down and change your filter so that you're not actually graphing that piece. Okay, so let me spread my Excel document back out a little bit. Alright, the last problem that I'm going to look at is this scale over here. It kind of changes it sometimes. What this Excel is doing is looking at your data and trying to do like an auto scale for you here on your percentages on the right. Okay, we need to take care of that because for what we're doing, we're never going to go over 100%. This would make sense if we were like a retail store or something, and say we had really good sales at Christmas, and then we went to over 100% of what our projection is. That's why it does this. But for what we're doing, you can never do more than 100%. You can't get more than 100% of your math problems correct, or you can't stay more than 100% of the time in your assigned area. So we're going to fix this. What we're going to do is we're going to right click, and we're going to go down to format axis. Okay, so what I did again, I selected the y-axis, I right click, format axis. Okay, and the way that's being controlled is by our bounds. Our minimum is at 0.0, which is going to give us the 0%. Our maximum is at 1.2, which is giving us 120%. All we have to do is change that so the maximum is back at 1.0 again, and that should automatically correct it for us. And for some reason it all deleted. Let me type that in again. 1.0, hit our enter key, and it's automatically adjusted our scale now. Let's X back out of that axis format area, and you can see now we're at the scale we need, 0 to 100%, and there's our data graphed over the weeks. Let's say that you have a student who is at going between 60 and 80%, and they're just back and forth, they're up and down, and that's the range that they work in most of the time, 60 to 80%. And you're wanting to show the movement in that, because when you graph on a line like that, 60 to 80% is going to look a lot like there's not a lot of movement. It's almost a straight line, not necessarily straight, but it doesn't show a lot of movement. Okay, you can go back. Let's actually change this data real quick, and I'm going to go against what I told you. I'm going to change just to fix this. I'm going to go ahead and enter in some raw data here, and I'm going to stay everything around between 60 and 70 actually, so that you can see what I'm doing. Just pump some numbers in. Alright, so even though those numbers are statistically, percentage-wise, they're pretty close, 60 and 70, you guys know as well as I do that there's a big difference between 60 and 70% when you're talking about, behavior where students are hitting people or being vulgar or maybe a little too much, those kinds of things. So we're going to try to show a little bit of movement on this line so that when you show up to present on your data, right now if you look, we've got almost a straight line because we're going from 0 to 100%. Let's see if we can narrow that down a little bit. What I'm going to do, instead of starting at 0, we've got nothing below 50%. Let's actually see if we can set this scale so that we start at 50% and go to 100, and see if we can better show some movement, which will help us identify trends and maybe help us identify antecedents for what might be causing some behaviors, okay? So let's pull up, and we're going to, again, left click on the y-axis. I'm going to go to Format Axis. This time, for a minimum, I want to change it, instead of 0, 0, I'm going to change it to 0.5. Okay? Now, we're starting, instead of starting at 0 on our scale, we are starting at 50% to 100%, and we can more clearly see some of the movement that we're going through. Okay? So what that might tell you, this data doesn't necessarily tell us anything because I just put those numbers in, but by being able to see this movement, maybe you can tell that on Tuesdays, Jenny is having an issue with staying in her seat. Okay, and so you look at your data over a length of time, you say, okay, every Tuesday we're having this slight dip from 70 down to 60%, and you're thinking, what's causing that? Trying to analyze this data, and come to find out that Jenny goes and stays with her grandma on Monday nights. So you investigate a little further and find out that grandma lets her stay up late and eat chocolate chip ice cream or what have you, and so that kind of helps us understand why is the data dipping at that point. But in order to be able to do that analysis, we need to be able to see what's going on with the data. And so right now we can see peaks and valleys a lot more clearly than whenever our range was from 0 to 100. Okay, and I'm going to set it back. And you can kind of see there we are at, the data is kind of flat and stagnant. You can't see a lot there. It does tell us the good, a track of where she's at. But when you really want to try to figure out what's going on, it's good to be able to see those trends a little easier. See those dips, those valleys, and those crests and things. So let me change that back one more time. Okay, and I think for the example document that I'm making here for Jenny, we're going to just leave that as is on a scale from 50 to 100 so that we can see some of that movement. Alright, that's graphing. I'm sure that you're going to run into a little bit of trouble your first time through. Post any comments you have. Use your, by now you should have gotten back your, I should have approved on Edmodo. I should have told you that your example document was good to go, or I may have told you some changes you need to make. If there's any significant changes, I may have emailed you and helped you correct some errors and emailed it to you. So what you need to do now is go ahead and set up your graphing portion. When you have those questions, post those at the bottom on the Edmodo comments section. That'll be great. I'm glad to do that, and that's the reason I want you to put those there. I understand that you could text me, but I like them on there because some other people, if somebody else is wondering that same question, maybe they don't want to ask, or maybe they're getting ready to ask, but they see where I've already answered it. It just saves time, makes us more efficient, and really, like I said, even just like we work with our kids in our classes, there may be somebody that doesn't want to ask a question, and so when they see that you were brave enough to stand up and ask the question, and I answered it for you there, they'll find out some information that they may need also. So we're about done with the PD. I hope that everything's going great. I'm hoping that you're finding this valuable and that this is something that you're thinking is going to make your job easier and that you're going to stick with. Again, questions, comments, put them in the comments area, the reply area on Edmodo. And when you're done, and I'll give instructions on Edmodo also, but when you're done, you're going to save this file and you're going to reply back and save a copy of it right there in Edmodo for me to review again. We're about done. I really appreciate your help, guys. Thanks.